Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 130, Emotional Alchemy. Now I actually wrote this myself. It is a booklet-length work, link in the description of course. If you're interested in my works, I've got a section on both of my books blogs, Blogspot and WordPress, also links in the description. There are also many works that I've edited, Alchemy, grimoires, works of darker magic, some academic works, various things on folklore, some spiritual and religious texts as well, including the Book of Tobit, which actually I find really interesting because it has a demonological component. But this particular work goes hand in hand with some of the occult videos I've been making lately on the topic of ambition, success, some anecdotes from my own life where I've used various psychological and behavioral methods in order to increase my capabilities in the world. A lot of it goes back really to change a major change in my life post overdose. That is, as I've spoken of in several videos. Before that, I was kind of aiming for the average lifestyle, like the lower middle class style of life, where I'd have a basic degree, I'd have a basic job, and I'd be, you know, supposedly happy in that, because that's what I had been taught my entire life. You know, go to college and you can get ahead at least to some degree, and you'll have some stability in your life. I realized that wasn't for me, but one of the other things that I did was I realized you could use, not only could you cast aside false guilt and fear to clear up your head spiritually. This is why this is an occult text, because I speak of spiritual development too. It's not just, you know, develop ambition in order to make money. Get a better job, you know, find a better mate in your romantic life. Okay, those things are good. But it's also about spiritual development. Insofar as false guilt and fear are in your life, you can simply cast them aside to help on your spiritual journey. This includes, by the way, even if you go back to whatever spirituality you're part of, like if someone's like born into Christianity, they spend their lives as a Christian, if you've purged the false guilt and fear that come associated with the dogmatic side of Christendom, and then go back to being a Christian, yeah, that's great. Go and love Jesus. There's nothing wrong with that. There's literally nothing. Like my more angsty days of really caring about that issue are done. So Islam, yeah, go ahead, be a Muslim, worship Allah, but you shouldn't have false dogmatic material that's been force-fed to you by some human culture that might not even coincide really with a proper interpretation of the dogma, and that can happen in many paths. But there's another method as well, and this is what I cover most heavily in this work. And that's, think of who gave you the false guilt and fear. Was it a religious dogma, or maybe a parent, some person in your life, something, some organizational structure, maybe even a state that's being tyrannical. Whatever it is, allow yourself to be angry at it. But you have to know how to use that anger properly. Most of the time, people lash out in their anger. They get angry and they punch somebody. They get angry and they get into a shouting match. Don't do that. That's destructive. When you're trying to wear one other person down, any benefit to you is just in having worn one other person down. You may not even be successful. You might look like an asshole. You knock yourself down a peg. That's obviously counterproductive. In any case, you haven't increased your own stature in life. You've simply run somebody else down. That sort of destructive egotism, I overlap as well with the political world. There are political figures, and business figures too, who have been primarily destructive forces. Their idea of how to extend their ego, to show their power, is to destroy. Then there are those that are constructive. Their idea is, I built something grand, I did something important. This is sort of the Olympian mindset. Instead of saying, well, you know, I hate this other person who runs around, they're like doing marathons and stuff, I think I'll, you know, break their kneecap. No, instead, why don't you practice, try to outdo them, try to outstrip them, be better than them in that endeavor that you seem to find so important. Be constructive. Maybe you can be the greatest marathon runner of all time, but you never know if you don't try. And even if you fail, it's to your benefit that you tried. You still improved yourself. Therein lies the purpose of true egotism, constructive egotism. It can benefit all of mankind. You can build yourself up and you can build others up. Everybody benefits. Great thing. Way, way better than like hurting other people and, you know, you start a fist fight or something. Sir, you can go up to your enemy and punch him in the neck for being an asshole, but you might get dragged off to jail. Who actually has the worst situation there? Okay, they're sore for a few days. Maybe they get knocked out. Maybe they lose a tooth or something. You're in a jail cell dropping the soap. I would think that's a worse place to be in your life. This also goes hand in hand with the last video I made within the Occult playlist, which is the concept of true friends and false friends, true enemies and sometimes even false enemies. Sometimes an obstacle is to your benefit. You have to use a little bit of logic and reason. That goes hand in turn with what I've said about guilt and fear. That is, specifically speaking, you know, in the false guilt and fear system, there's also guilt and fear that makes sense. And you have to be able to reason your way through both. You have to use your mind. You have to develop logical faculties. I keep encouraging people, when they ask me questions about these things, I say, take a course in logic. Or get a handbook on logic from like an academic course and go through it and try to understand it as well as you can. It was immeasurably helpful to me. I took a course when I was at Castleton College, now Castleton University, in logic. I actually got more than 100 in that course, which was hilarious. Like, I did the bonus work and got bonus points. It was weird. I don't understand their grading system fully, but somehow I got like a 103 in the course. It was good. It was interesting. It's kind of mathematical, and not all of it's related to logic as we apply it to like debate and philosophy. Some of it's strictly mathematical in form. That side of it is actually fundamentally easier to understand in some cases. Now, but understanding fallacies, understanding the rudiments of debate, elocution and things, I think are important. You don't have to be the best at it. You don't have to be truly advanced, like understand every logical fallacy. I must have a mind that categorizes them all perfectly so I can apply them to any situation. No, you don't have to be like a total mentalist or something. You just have to understand it in a more basic sense. Another thing is this, that false guilt and fear or any other negativity, and this is the fundamental premise of the work, can be alchemized, transformed, through the right understanding of things, through the right mindset, into anger that is then used for constructive purposes. You allow yourself to feel a little bit of that anger and stress in order to drive yourself. Once you've gotten to the point where you're only using it for constructive energy, it can create more and more ambition. You can use it to solve your problems. You can use it to get ahead very easily. Because you can use it if you obsess over it just enough. Not so much that you're like going out into la la land. But if you can control yourself, if you have enough self-control, you can use it to do whatever you're trying to do. It will make you practice harder, potentially, for something. You're trying to build a skill, maybe you practice harder if you think, wow, you know, I've got to practice twice as much today because, you know, I'm kind of pissed off at the world and I want to, you know, be great at this. I don't want to be just kind of mediocre. I want to be good. I want to be great. And I want to show people how I can really shine. And then the method is, you're trying to prevent that stress in the future. Because once you've improved yourself enough in whatever areas and whatever goals or systems you find most important, once you've done that, that stress has gone away because you no longer have to stress over it. Well, now, of course, that person who you were kind of pissed off at, who said, oh, you'll never learn how to, like, play the guitar like Jimi Hendrix. Well, maybe not, but once you get good enough at it, is it really going to make a difference? You're still a good guitar player. And now you can prove them. Now you can play a couple shows. Make sure that they know that you played them too. Send them a YouTube link or something. Then you sit back and chuckle. You have to imagine their reaction. It's the fun part of this whole thing. Disclaimer, this is not a magic bullet to be successful. And there are probably some people who lack the capability to be ambitious enough to really use this method. Some people find it very hard to be angry at all. Some people, they have deadened senses when it comes to guilt and fear in the first place. Some people simply have no significant ambitions and find it very difficult to become ambitious. But I think for the average person, they would benefit from the basic mindset of be constructive, not destructive. It takes more effort, perhaps, to construct than to destruct. It takes more effort to spend months learning your skill than to try to hobble somebody else in a single moment in their skill. But long term, it builds you up more, and it's not just about that one other person or thing. You're also increasing your capabilities relative to everybody else potentially in the entire world. It builds you up. It's more constructive. It can make you more money, honestly. It can garner you more fame. It can do all sorts of wonderful things. You've also got to watch out for false pride. If you're only rising up to mediocrity in something, it doesn't make sense to declare yourself the greatest things in sliced bread in that field. You got to watch out for too much egotism as well, because that itself is destructive, but it's self-destructive. It may not destroy someone else directly, but it can hold you back. Sometimes that goes into the friend and enemy thing. Somebody who's saying, well, you know, you're just kind of good at this, you know, you're getting kind of full of yourself. That can be a good thing. because then you're like, oh shit. You got to reflect upon it and see if they're right. And then you say, well, crap. Well, I want to build it up even further. I want to be better because I don't want to be mediocre. I don't want to just be good. I want to be great at something. And it can work. But yeah, that's a text that I wrote. It's 30 pages long, so I kept it short because what I hate doing, I hate it when people do this. They write like a book on some topic. And it's got the same amount of basic central content, but they fill it with 100 pages of filler, and then it's like twice as expensive. What the hell is the point of that? I like to keep it simple, say in as few words as possible while getting the point across. So that's why some of my texts are on the shorter side. They're meant to be that way. And yes, by the way, to several people who have asked me this, I have thought about compiling them together, but they're sort of monographic works, like they wouldn't really fit together in some cases. Some of them are more psychological, some are more pure occultism, some are kind of in the spooky woo philosophical side, honestly. So I don't necessarily think that they would be all classed together. Like an ASMR occult booklet doesn't really fit with this kind of text. Again, link in the description to my release of this work finally on Amazon. I know some people have been waiting for this. I am working on its companion booklet now. I'm 10 pages in as we speak. It'll definitely be done before the end of October, and then I've got a huge project to work on thereafter. I wanted to get a couple of self-titled works done for this month. And then from thenceforth until it's completed, it's all about the lesser keys, the various works. I'm going to independently release each one of them, then compile them together with some extra material into the actual Lesser Keys of Solomon, which will be its own release. I have contacted my artist. She's agreed to do this work, and so it's going to be all good. So again, link in the description to the edition here, as well as to my books blogs. That's about all. Peace out.